Welcome to episode 41, Witchy, Ethics, and Politics.
Join us today as we talk about how we navigate the world, our work in that world, and the political system as humans and as witches.
Particularly as we delve in the juicy differences and similarities and Venn diagrams composed of ethics and politics and morals.
Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Witchy Wit podcast, where we look at life through a witchy lens. I'm Kimberlyn.
I'm Leilani.
At Witchy Wit, we explore current events,
Ideas,
music and books,
and experiences in ways that recognize energy and life in every body and everything.
We are both real witches.
And we bring two real perspectives through the lens of our different ages,
Races,
and backgrounds.
with a healthy skepticism for what we have been told is true. Our conversations are raw, candid, and vulnerable.
Join us as we cast a spell to uncover what we each know is true in our intuitive, witchy selves.
Welcome to episode 41, Witchy, Ethics, and Politics. So I'm pretty excited about this topic. We've actually been kind of talking about it off and on for 2 years, really. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about where we've been the past couple of weeks.
That sounds great. Do you want to start?
Sure, I'll start.
Okay.
Well, actually, yeah, this is great because my check-in actually includes you. So last week I was up in Austin for a workshop, a personal development and a lot of exercises, really phenomenal. I mean, I feel as if my heart's opened, I've expanded, I've grown a lot. And one of the exercises that we had on Sunday was to, we did a little bit of a test, and it showed some of the things that might be areas that we'd like to work on. And for me, it was opening my heart. So, being more vulnerable. And because I'm very protective of myself, and so it's been an issue for a number of decades. Anyway, so the exercise was to call your father and ask him to say that he's proud of you. Obviously, my dad's not obviously, but my dad's dead, so I couldn't call him. But the idea was call someone for whom that would be a challenge, because for me the task and the difficulty is in asking for something. Is basically in asking for something, because I tend to live a very transactional life. I feel like I have to earn someone's love or earn someone's, for you to do something for me, I have to do something for you. So anyway, so I tried first calling people for whom that would be kind of a challenge, people with whom I have a type of relationship where it would be near impossible to do this, but I was willing to do it because I wanted to open my heart. Well, of course, this exercise is over. This day is Mother's Day, so nobody's home. So I'm going through my contacts, and I didn't want to call someone who I knew loved me and would say it very easily, because I thought it would be too easy. But it was getting close to the wire, and I had to call somebody, so I called you, and it actually was still fucking hard.
Really?
I mean, I know you love me, I know you're proud of me, I know all of this stuff, but the very act of asking for me, I started I started choking. So I said, you said, "Hi, friend," and I said, "Hey, I have a favor," or I can't even remember what words I used, and I started crying, and you were like, "Okay." And so I asked you, and I'm getting kind of choked up even talking about it now. I asked you I said, I'm just calling to see to ask if you would say you're proud of me. And the thing that you said that was so touching to me was that you said, "Well, do you mean in general, or would you like me to be specific and say some specific areas?" And so the team, we're doing this as a team, and the other people, we all had different challenges, and they're all sitting around. We're at a Starbucks. They're all sitting around, and I start crying, and they're thinking, "Oh my God, she's not, it's going to be really hard, or this person's not going to say it, or whatever." But I was kind of giving him a high five, and they were very, very supportive. But I just thought that it was so moving. Not only that you said that, I mean, I knew that was going to happen, but that it was so hard for me to ask, and even then you were so open to the exercise, and you were so willing to give me exactly what I needed. And you were specific about that. And then afterwards you said, "Now, do you need to would you like to hang up now, or would you like to talk and process this all? But we had a deadline, so it was like, no, gotta go, bye. Yeah. So thank you again for helping me to grow a little bit and to really break my heart open a little bit. I thought that was really powerful, much more powerful than I thought it was going to be. Powerful exercise. So thank you.
I have one thing I'd like to say.
Sure,
I have a lot about that, but one thing I want to point out. Something I love is that, first of all, I'm just really grateful that you called me. But it was so in some ways it was a learning experience for me too. Because I was in the car with my partner driving to the beach when you did that. Oh my gosh, okay. Yeah, or driving home from the beach when you did that. But, so I hung up the phone with you, and then he's looking at me, he's like, is everything okay? And I kind of sat there for a moment, because I imagine for some people outside maybe of the community that I'm in, or that maybe you're in, that might be really disconcerting or worrisome. But I sat there for a moment and I said, she said she needed to go, so I trust that she's okay. So I'm excited to hear what that was all about.
Yeah, no, it was good. It was like when we hung up, they were looking at me like, what did she say? And I said, and I couldn't talk. So I gave them a high five, and they were cheering, and like people at the other table in the Starbucks, they started cheering too. They didn't even know what we were cheering about, but the whole thing was about opening ourselves up and creating challenges. And so it took me, I didn't really process that I think till the next morning. But it was amazing.
I just love you. I'm so impressed by your courage.
No, thank you.
What a courageous thing to do.
Thank you. It was. I'll tell you more about it later. But it was it was a wonderful afternoon. Actually, there were 4 of us on our team, and we each had to do one of those stretch exercises. So it was amazing for us to be there to support each other and to watch ourselves kind of dropping some protective scales.
Wow.
Yeah. So what about you? That was my check-in. What about you?
Can I veer us in the opposite direction? Much like we do from Witchy Wit, we're like a car that's just going all over the road.
Well, it was 2 different perspectives.
Yes. Here we go. In the other lane.
Good, thank you.
I would like to share that I have found, or I have refound, a area of my life that just brings me such joy. It's such a simple pleasure, and it's doing my nails. Yes.
I'm like giving her high fives here.
Yes. So, I feel like I'm a pretty natural person. I wear little, if any, makeup. I have monochromatic clothing because it makes it easier to match as I sit here in a black dress.
She does. She does.
Just because it's easier. It's more efficient,
I guess, but it's also pretty stylish too.
Thanks. I do like the way it looks, but it's just easier for me to match things if everything is monochromatic. If it's like black and gray scales, it's just easy. But I've rediscovered that I love doing my nails. And it's like these nail stickers, and I know I'm late to the game because I remember them coming out a long time ago. Because as a teacher, teachers always have side hustles, which is a problem because we should be paid more.
Yeah, we shouldn't need side hustles.
We shouldn't need side hustles, so I'm late to this game. But I love these nail stickers. Have you used nail stickers?
No, but I was complimenting someone about it about a month ago, and they gave me the name of a company. So it'll be interesting to hear what you're saying because I want some.
Yeah. Okay. So I realize I'm late to the game, but just in case you don't know, it's like a sticker that you peel off, and then you stick it on your nail, and you press it down, and it's normally with like medical grade adhesive. And then you just clip off the edges or file off the edges, and then your nails are done. But here's what I love about them. They last for weeks or over a month.
So it's funny that you're mentioning... I'm sorry, were you done?
I'm not done, but okay. I love to talk. It's okay.
So it's funny that you mentioned that because the last 2 times you were here, you had sparkly nails, and I was admiring them, and we never got a chance to actually talk about them because we were doing other things. But you inspired me to explore. I'll tell you about my nail polish and stuff. But
So I really like them, especially because I do partner acrobatics. I'm upside down and I see my toes a lot. So I really enjoy it. I really enjoy them. Also, and here's what they look like right now.
Yeah. Oh, they're adorable. Well, see, and that one of the things I loved was that, I love the fact that on your nails that you had different colors, and I was thinking, wow, does she have to pay extra to have her nail specialist do different designs on different fingers?
I am my own specialist.
You are.
But I have found that, and it does seem to be like common nail sticker logic that glitter nails last longer, and because of my Enneagram wings, I'm really into efficiency. So if I'm going to do it, I want it to last. So I do like the glitters. Also, I just like glitter.
Yeah, you do like glitter.
I do like glitter. And as a partner dancer, if I put a thick nail polish on my toes, it keeps them from cracking when leads step on me or when I kick them. So really, I
never thought of that.
Yeah. So really, this is just like a win-win-win-win.
Win-win. Yeah.
And it reminds me too, and so then I think back and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember being in high school and I had a whole shoebox full of nail polish. I used to love doing this. Yes. And so maybe this is a win-win-win-win-win because now I'm like, oh yeah, I'm tapping into this part of me that was, peeking out back when I was in high school of, I don't know, expression or whatever. But it always chips. And then I'm like, I don't want to freaking do this if it's going to chip in 24 hours. Which again is like my Enneagram wings, wanting efficient, things to be efficient. So
and neat and clean.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, which shows up in my house and a lot of other places. But I'm just really happy with it. So, oh my gosh! Oh, I didn't even realize this. I'm going to share this too.
Yeah,
I bought a set that is the phases of the moon.
No.
So then I went down this rabbit hole of witchy nails.
Oh no.
I know. I am so excited, and I'm like, ooh, I wonder what ritual I'm going to wear these to.
Well, we'll have to off the recording, but we'll have to share companies because, like I said, someone mentioned it to me, so I'm so fascinated by this. First of all, because you inspired me to investigate this, and unbeknownst to yourself, and I didn't know that they were
stickers.
Mm-hmm. So wow, cool.
Well, thank you to our listeners for doing a deep dive into Kimberlyn's emotional growth experience over the weekend, and then into my nails. Okay, so just another deep dive of how these nails are expressing my personality. So I went and I'm putting my hands in front of my face. I think it's because I'm feeling a little bit of shame or self-consciousness.
Oh, so you're protecting. Okay,
yeah, I'm noticing a physical protection. So another way these are showing up as a way of me expressing the deepest parts of my personality in nail fashion. I went and did some research on the quality standards for these and different brands, and I looked at Consumer Reports rating of all the brands and which brands are better than the other brands.
Consumer Reports has a report on nail covers.
I love Consumer Reports.
I
follow Consumer Reports on Instagram. They're just so great. But I'm like, if I'm going to do this, I want to do it right, which is so a part of my personality, right? If I'm going to do it, I want it to be efficient and the best.
I agree.
Even if it's my nail wraps.
Well, well done.
But then,
and thank you for the quality assurance.
But I don't know. Maybe this is probably an understatement. I just do things and I'm living my life. And then I have these opportunities to sit here with you. And then I say these things and I'm like, oh man, I don't even realize
But in this, we take this as an opportunity to reflect. See, you're living large, living your life. And sometimes you need to see how awesome your life is, and you have to kind of step back and step out of the stream for a moment, and that's what these check-ins give you the opportunity to do.
I like that you think that I'm saying that my life, how awesome my life is. I'm thinking how dysfunctional my logic is around my nail wraps. But thank you for that perspective that my life is awesome.
Two different perspectives. Okay, here we go. So, episode 41, Witchy Ethics and Politics.
So, taking another aggressive turn from my nail discussion.
Exactly. So, first I'd like to just kind of start, because we use the word ethics a lot, and sometimes I think when people are using the word ethics, they really mean morals, right? And so I thought maybe I can do just a real quick down and dirty description of the difference.
So I don't think I know the difference. And
Okay.
You mentioned this when we were talking about the episode, and I was like, oh, I don't know.
Okay.
I guess I don't know what the difference
Okay.
is.
Well, ethics are kind of the social contract, the law of the land, the rules of a group that you might belong to, Girl Scouts, Our Circle, or something like that. Those are ethics. So it's created by the community as at large. Morals are your own individual compass. So so ethics, both ethics and morals have to do with right and wrong. Okay, but ethics tends to be like the laws of the United States or the rules of our group or whatever, and you can agree or disagree with them, but that's kind of the stated laws. And by participating in that society, you're expected to have agreed on a certain level to them. So morals are your individual compass of right and wrong, and it may or may not coincide with the ethical, like if you belong to a church or if you belong to if you're a citizen of the United States, it may or may not belong to that, but it's your own sense of right or wrong. And that can be, and that can change. It can be very fluid. It can be situational. As we've noticed from our own lives, I'm sure. So that's the big difference.
Okay,
does that make sense?
That makes sense. I think I use them interchangeably.
We often do.
So as we record this episode, I'm going to try and use them definitionally correctly,
if we can. But I just
Okay.
wanted to say, I mean, so often what we'll be saying, we'll be talking about our personal ethics, and that's really morals. But I think as long as we are distinguishing in our conversation between the ethics of a larger group and our own, that's the most important thing.
So I'm really excited about this episode because, well, for a lot of reasons, but one reason I'm really excited is whenever I come out of the broom closet to someone, either myself or they just figure it out, one of the questions I get asked the most is, well, without a Bible
or a religion,
like, because most of the people that I am around claim Christianity, just in our country, that's just the way that it is. How do you navigate these like ethical or moral questions if you don't have a Bible? If you don't have the Ten Commandments, like how do you do it? If you don't have a pope or a preacher or a Bible, these people are just oftentimes really confused as to how we do that. So I'm really excited for us to talk about this today because I think I do navigate it, and I see people that I'm around. I think that they are also navigating it, like the women in my circle. So
and everyone, regardless of if you have a Bible or if you have a set of rules or if you have a pope, people still have their own individual negotiations with which is why we have morals, right? So I'm sure there are Roman Catholics who don't necessarily agree with all of the tenets of Roman Catholicism, right? Because they either feel strongly about something or whatever, and so. Just having a Bible is no guarantee that you're going to do everything right or wrong. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I do know what you mean.
Yeah.
I wonder if sometimes people that I bump up against would not know what you mean. But I think tapping into these morals, so my own personal things, can be challenging and troubling sometimes, and even cause me to have to face up to some hypocritical decisions that I've made. It can be, it can be rough. So I'm excited to talk about this because, for me, in the absence of having a Bible or a pope or somebody that can tell me what to do, I'm left figuring it out on my own.
That's exactly right. So, so that's ethics and morals. Let's talk a little bit because the episode is called Witchy Ethics and Politics. So let's just briefly touch on our politics. I don't know how much of this you care to share.
Sure.
But because I think what's fascinating for me is the intersection of my ethics and personal, my morals in terms of the ethics of my society, and then how that manifests in terms of what's going on politically. So just to talk a little bit about my politics, I would consider. Well, I don't know if We use party affiliation often as a label, and I don't think that that's necessarily the most useful because, as we've just noted, often we'll have personal agreements or disagreements with but I would consider myself a relative liberal, but I actually have some more moderate leanings in certain areas. So for example, I consider myself an ecofeminist, and I think that's I kind of fell into that. I think because of the theory and the way it started explaining, but it only started making sense for me when I started exploring my witchy side. So that in those areas, I consider myself super liberal. Obviously, in terms of the choices I make with my spirituality, that doesn't necessarily. A lot of people like to think that kind of equates to liberality, but it's not necessarily.
We have seen in our
own community.
That is not always the case.
Yeah, and that it's a little bit. I don't know if I consider that emotionally lazy to just make an equation because it works for me. That's the same for other people. But yeah, and then some of the things that I've really started exploring a great deal. I kind of always thought about it on a certain level, but now I'm being really proactive about it. Is anti-racist pedagogy and incorporating a lot of these ideas in how I actually interact with my students, how I present content. The content itself might reflect that, but also how you present content can grow and develop in a really powerful way because of anti-racist pedagogy. And then just like something that you just mentioned, personal responsibility. This idea that. And this is where I tend to go off the rails sometimes with some of my friends. I strongly believe that the universe I live in has been created to a large extent with my interaction with the world around me. So, we'll touch on this a little bit in our next episode on Planes of Existence. But I have a personal responsibility to contribute to the ethos of the land that I live in. In the world that I live in. So I consider that pretty liberal. Would you care to share?
I would. Mm-hmm. So I would say that I am extremely liberal. Mm-hmm. I am very, very, very far left. And that I would also say that I'm pretty socialist. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I am like very far out there.
Yeah.
I do vote Democrat. But I only vote Democrat because that is what is available to me. And I would like to think that the older I get, the more radical I will become. Mm-hmm. I just like to think that I will continue growing and opening. And so far, in my 39 years of existence, that is true. Mm-hmm. The older I get, the more radical I get.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love how that is unfolding for me. A lot of my political thought centers around personal responsibility and compassion, and how I can be compassionate for others and how I can take personal responsibility myself, not just for myself, but in relation to others. Mm-hmm. We were kind of mentioning this beforehand as we were talking about the poem that we'll read afterwards, and this will make more sense in the fullness of time as we get to the poem, but that as a woman who is white and comes from the background that I come from, it is very easy for me to think that everything is fine, mm-hmm. or that a lot of things are fine. And I am constantly reminding myself and looking for opportunities in my politics and in my ethics to remove that spell of just being like, help me with this word, like everything, like of just like everything is fine, like complacency. Yes. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. This spell of this illusion of complacency. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Mm-hmm. It's really important to me that I get those words right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So a lot of my ethics, which I want reflected in my politics, is well, hold on, let me pull off this veil and look deeper. And just because it may feel that way to me because of the way things are set for me, it may not be that way for others.
That's exactly.
And so my personal practice that I'm dedicated to magically as well as politically, which is fueled by my ethics and morality, is I digging into that, and then my work needs to be to make it more equitable.
So, having said that, one of the things that, as we talk about, one of the things that I feel as I talk about my political positions and how they reflect my personal interests, needs, responsibility to the world, is how to make that manifest, how to take what I believe to be right and how to make that more available to people who don't have all of the rights and who don't have all of the good that I have, right? But also how to help others to maybe see that. I mean, so I say all of that because one of the things that I am so confronted with in myself, time and time and time again, particularly in terms of things that are going on with the SCOTUS and Texas politics, is this. I feel so much distrust of the political system, and then how do we navigate that? How can how do we fix what's broken? I mean, how can I, as an individual, fix what's broken? What do I contribute to? Who do I talk to? Who do I band with? Who do I band together with? So that things that I see as a really flawed way of getting good things done can work better.
So my question is, as somebody who believes the things and is coming from the perspective that this ecofeminism, anti-racist pedagogy, how is it for you to work inside of these systems where we are told to be apolitical, and even in like the red state of Texas, right? And gosh, right, and especially these past few years, how does it feel for you to hold your morals the way that you do and then navigate this system?
So I'm teaching content, I'm teaching stuff, and when anytime you're delivering, it's like you're the hub grub driver or whatever. Anytime you're delivering something, you're still delivering a little bit of you. And so I think, we were talking, I can't remember, we were talking about, I teach an intro to film music class, and we were talking about the music in one of these scenes in Lawrence of Arabia. And so one of the things that we talked about is, how this British guy comes in, and I remember saying something about, oh yes, and he saves all of these people who were not, apparently were not able to take care of themselves or something. So even in asides, there's me there, and so I'm kind of the idea. What I was reflecting upon was this notion of the white savior coming in, saving all the Arabs because they couldn't take care of themselves, so they needed Lawrence of Arabia to come in. So even in asides, students, even just throw away stuff that isn't necessarily political, but it's still reflective of me. People are seeing who I am, and I'm convinced that your students are seeing who you are, and so what I can still teach my content. I can still be apolitical in the classroom, and I can still, without being confrontational with the students, be true to myself. I mean, to a greater or lesser extent, I don't have to overshare or whatever. I don't overshare, so that I can say that that Kimberlyn was in that classroom. Not this little cardboard cutout of a professor. Did I answer the question you asked?
I think so. I think so. I think it gets to a larger point, which is that I find myself constantly navigating, which is how do I choose, or when and how do I choose changing things, because change for me is a really important part of my ethics. How do I change things from within the system, being a part of the system and changing it from the inside, or do I change things from the outside by rejecting the system and leaving the system and then, coming in from the outside? And I think both are what I've been kind of rolling around in my mind and in my heart is that both are necessary. Which one will I, or when will I do which one?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's you talk about change from within, and I remember a line from Hamilton. You can't put a fire out from inside of the house. but there are certain things that you can do, and you were saying one other thing. I just wanted to say, remember my check-in where you said, do you need me to be specific, or that kind of stuff is you, right? And that's the part that shows another student who might be 15, 16 years old, but eventually will get older and will vote and or may run for office or something like that. That's the kind of modeling that actually creates an ethical foundation. If whether or not they're paying attention in some cases. I mean, sometimes they absorb, depending on the personality of the person who's observing, if it sinks in like osmosis or not.
Yeah, and that's the parts that I want to show up, and that won't get me fired, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
That don't go against my contract, that don't go against the rules that we have in my district for like what a teacher is allowed to talk about because of our sex ed curriculum. There are things that because I live in Texas, like I am not allowed to talk about with my students, and I cannot talk about it to them because it is against the rules that I have, and that I would get fired. So there is this, which goes with this thing of my morals, which is like, what can I do that both will not get me fired but will keep me in this job, but will also serve my kids? And that is like a constant juggling act that I'm doing.
Imagine, yeah.
And I think some people may look in on the outside and assume that I don't do that. Like I'm either you're pushing your beliefs on these kids. Like that would be nice.
It would be so much easier.
It would be so much easier, but I can't. I mean, I could, but I would lose my job. I can't, and I'm gonna dig in and find those juicy parts where I can support them and hold space for them, and then let them blossom and open up.
Yeah, and I would suggest correct me if I'm wrong, this is just my observation, that a part of your moral system is to not, whether or not it's part of your job or not, is to not tell somebody how they should live their life or what they should believe or whatever. One of the things that I think is one of the most powerful aspects of you is how you can support someone wherever they are, right? So it's kind of a moot point. It's not really a moot point, but I just think that it's one of those things that people are so afraid about because they might think you're like them. That's all I'm gonna say. Because maybe that's an action that they would take, and I don't think that that's necessarily a part of your educational system. But that's just me from the outside.
Right, right. Well, so one thing I'd like for us to talk about is because you're touching a little bit on it, is this idea of like, when did we first get these inklings of our ethical or moral perspectives? Because as I'm just talking with you about this, I'm remembering like a time whenever I was younger that I remember being confronted with this, and then also realizing that I am not the same as the people around me. The moments where it's like, oh, I thought everybody thought this. Like we're different. What?
Yeah.
So so I went to high school in rural Missouri, very, very rural Missouri. And I remember being in a car, and we were at a stoplight, and it was in the middle of nowhere, right? And it's like late night, early morning, and we're sitting there, and it's rural Missouri, and then in this area, it's very flat, and we're at this stoplight, and we're just sitting there, and I can see in all four directions.
No, nothing.
No one is coming, right? No one is there. and I can see for a very long way that no one is there. It's not like there's a turn and they might at any moment round the corner and there's a vehicle. We're sitting there. It's rural Missouri. There's no one there, and we're just sitting at this stoplight for what seems like an eternity. And I mentioned to my friend, I'm like, I think you should just go. And they're like, the light is red. Yes, the light is red. But I think you should just go. Well, but the light is red. I understand that the light is red, but like, look, there's nobody around. Like, we're just like, come on, we got to get going. Like, And so what seemed like a very shallow exchange, really highlights something that as I'm speaking to you today, like I'm seeing how it ties back to that moment, which is like, the rules are rules. And I think the rules are good, but rules are guidelines. And that what's really most important is us applying those rules and then situationally analyzing the application of said rules in order to make choices that are serving the outcome that is best, right?
Yes.
Like just going when you're at a stoplight in the middle of nowhere.
Yes. Okay, you are going to howl because I wrote down the first time this.
Okay.
And it's just the opposite.
No, you're kidding me.
You
are kidding me.
I think I was maybe 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
And we lived across the street from Avon Avenue Elementary School, which is where I went to school.
Okay.
And I remember there was a woman who we called her Nanny. She was an older woman, and like about 5 of the sets of parents around there would she would take care of us because our parents all worked, and many of them worked in factories, and they had to be there super early, so they would drop us off at Nanny's, and we'd stay there until time for school, go to school, come there for lunch, and then go back to school. And then it depending on what time our parents got off work, we'd go back to Nanny's and play outside and stuff, but she was kind of in charge of us. Anyway, I remember it was after lunch, and there was a whole group of us. I might have been the youngest. I'm first or second, kindergarten or first grade, and others from anywhere between first and fourth grade. And we were going back, and it's a crossing, traffic light at a crossing right across from the school. So kids are wandering back and forth, and people just know when in the cars they have to slow down there. There might have been a crossing guard too. I don't even remember. And they, because kids are going to be darting back and forth, and they have to be careful. So I remember we were getting ready to cross the street, and the light turned yellow, and everyone started going, and I didn't go because the light was yellow, and I didn't think we'd get across the street in time. And they said, it doesn't matter, the cars will wait for us and stuff. And I remember them pulling on me, and I was holding onto the traffic light, like the base of the traffic light. And because they're like, it doesn't matter, like you were saying, it doesn't matter, they'll wait for us, they're not going to hit us. And I said, no, but the light's yellow. But and they were trying to convince me, and I just wouldn't budge.
You don't go on a yellow light.
And so it's just
you don't go.
It's like if you think you can get across, but I didn't think we could get across, and so it's like that's an instance of where my moral system was totally different from everybody else's. And that's when I began to realize that other people don't look at the rules the same way as I do.
Right?
Isn't that funny though? How it's just like the opposite.
I love it.
And
I also think we've been given so many opportunities to see ethics at play in our government through the past 4. So I don't know. Time is a flat circle. I have no idea. Through the past few years, and I've definitely, we've been in conversation, and you've said things, and I've been like, which I think is important, because I do feel like politically we are in a similar direction.
Oh, yeah, totally.
But we definitely have things that show up.
We're individuals,
We have things that show up where I'm like, I don't really... No. And I'm sure you have the same things. You have the similar experience with me, and that's so interesting that I had no idea that we come from like opposite perspectives.
See, 2 different perspectives.
Yeah, 2 different perspectives.
But I think we got the same lesson, which is that how, our personal choices are not necessarily always going to align with the agreements of the group you're with or whatever. And so how do you negotiate that? How do you kind of stand stay your ground or whatever? Or, do you, okay, well, it's not that important, that kind of stuff. And those are choices that whether they're aware of them or not, everyone makes pretty much every single moment of the day. Like you're negotiating, I'm negotiating, what I think is right and wrong or best, versus what, the group might think, or the country might think, or our state might think, or SCOTUS might think.
I think a big starting point for me is that moment of realization of, just because, like, my brain, the engine of my brain does not operate in the same way other people's engines in their brain operates, or hearts or whatever. And that's okay. And that doesn't make, just to be like, have an example, that doesn't make your yellow light move wrong, right? Like, I don't think that you are wrong.
Okay.
Would I have made the same decision? No.
You're like,
yellow to me means run faster. The law says that you have to pierce the plane of the intersection before the light turns red. So I will pierce that plane, and I will keep going.
Yeah. I'm kind of thinking that way now that I'm older. But it's kind of simplified with this yellow light example. But I think it's true. Like, just because you want to stop at the yellow light, like, I as a person want to not just be like, well, that's dumb, that's wrong. No, like you have a right to think that way. And I also appreciate your logic. Like, I'm better for being around someone who says, who challenges my, like, run faster mentality, right? My push it mentality. Yes. So just the last bit of that story.
Okay.
First of all, the rest of those kids were totally furious with me because we missed the light, and the crossing guards looking at us like, what are you, idiots? And then to top it off, we were late to school. So I'm not saying that my choice was necessarily a good one. I'm just saying it just made me aware of how I was viewing things a little bit differently from everybody else. Oops.
But the end, for me, the end does not always justify the means, right? So do you want to get to school even if you break your morals, but you get to school on time?
Yeah.
This is like one of those, like, logic questions or ethical questions, right?
Yes.
Or do you abide by your morals and then deal with the consequences of getting to school?
Well, I dealt with those consequences, let me tell you.
I'm imagining all those kids are like, she was holding on to the pole.
I was such an idiot. Well, anyway. Yeah, but it was I had that distinct feeling of, I was holding on, and I remember someone, like, pulling on my skirt, because we wore skirts then, and someone, like, trying to grab my leg. It's like, come on, stop being such an idiot. But yeah, I was standing my ground.
I love that. And I know we've had discussions, we've had some discussions about magical work that we've done for politics. And I'm in full support of you choosing not to talk about this if you don't want to, where you've talked about wanting to add to the collective energy of the world. And my reaction to that has been one of, like, my reaction is, like, I'm not sure that that's working, or like that. I'm not sure that that's.
It ain't helping.
Yes, but like a little bit. Yes, but a little more nuanced than that, and, like, I'm wondering if we should just burn it down and start over, and I'm really, like, being reductive in this, but, like, the general feeling, and I'm sure as we talk about this, I can get way more, like, nuanced, but, like, the energy I've gotten from you and the words you've said has been, like, I'm adding collectively to this energy and making things different, and then I'm sitting there being what I would call cynical, being like, I think we should just burn it down. I think this whole situation is fucked. We should burn it down. This is bullshit. Like, so just. And I'm kind of drawing a line to Kimberlyn holding onto the post, and me being like, "Fuck it, go through the line."
Well, it's so one of the things. I mean, bouncing back between ethics and politics, one of the things that I'm seeing so much across the board, regardless of people's political stance or party affiliation, is this growing distrust of the political system, and regardless of who you believe in or whatever, this sense that it's not necessarily doing what it's supposed to do. And so from that, the two-party system with these small little teeny other parties does not seem to be addressing all of the concerns that people have. And so this is an instance where it's like, burn the sucker down. You know what I mean? Like, why are we investing in something that maybe people feel, okay, well, it's worked for the most part. It's not working anymore. And or at least I don't sense that it's working a whole lot. And we see political affiliations seeping into places where they're not supposed to be. SCOTUS anyway. And but you know what I mean? This whole and so I'm kind of amenable to the idea of rebuilding, of rethinking and rebuilding. And that's one of the things that I think we're being confronted with in academia, at least in higher education, is this idea of what is really working about the system as it exists, and what do we, really need to, just because we had to live through it to get our, degrees, there's no reason to just keep something. Don't just do it because we've done it. And so I would love to see that kind of thinking in the about the political system. It's like what's working and what's not working, and then how can we address that? So, but no one's asking me. But I'm getting my voice out there on the podcast.
I do think a lot of people are asking you. I think you, and this is something that I do. And this is something that I love about you. You hold these positions and these places and at least in parts of my life where I do watch you and I do listen to you and I do learn from you. Okay. In our circle, you may not stand at the center of our circle and say, here's how I think you should vote in this upcoming election. And I do also think that you create and you hold sacred space where I do learn things.
Oh, well, good. I'm so glad.
From you and because of you. And then as a teacher too, And then also I see you doing things politically. And I'm better for being in a circle and sharing space with you and being in a room with you and doing a podcast with you.
So let's actually, since you mentioned that, let's kind of let's gradually walk across the idea of what we do politically.
The light is yellow, let's run! Let's go! I'm running politically! Here we go!
No, quiet, calmly. Ti calma. Okay, so here's the thing. So, again, one of the things that I'm always confronted with is how can I have a voice in the system? Besides my one vote, right? And so one of the things that I feel strongly about is people having that option, people being able to vote, people feeling comfortable voting, people understanding what the voting system's about, and maybe sometimes, like me, being slightly suspicious of it, but at least knowing it and understanding it. And so some of the things that I do as a part of that is I'm a volunteer deputy registrar, or maybe I might need to see if I need to take the class again, because my certification might have ended, but where I'm allowed to register people to vote. So yeah. To me, that's one small thing that I can do. Some years I drive people to the polls who can't get there. And then people who have had problems, there used to be a place downtown where they can kind of get their stuff straightened out, their voting credentials and stuff straightened out. I don't know how that works anymore. But that, it's a small thing, but at least I feel besides that amplifies my one vote by increasing the number of people who have that opportunity. Is there anything that you feel like you can do or you have done politically?
Yes. One thing that I do for myself is I make sure that I am not the smartest person in the room. So like personally for me, I want to put myself in places where I am uncomfortable, where I am sometimes that means that I put myself in places where, because I think I personally think I am very, 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 very liberal. I think that I am like falling off the end of like, you know, for you know, most of the places in mainstream society that I am navigating, I will put myself in places where I go there and I'm like, I'm such a square.
No, oh my gosh.
You know, like, oh my gosh, I am such a nerdy square person. Like these people like live off grid and like, you know, like, wow. You know, so, but that's just one example. But but I want to be putting myself in places where I am learning, and that might mean like I feel like our circle does that to me. Just you as an example, I'm always learning. But also like I consume things. Now I do not consume Fox News, but like I do consume media that is.
You are super savvy, I have to say. You are super savvy about what's going on out there.
I consume media that is. I don't want to say bipartisan because I think that that can be like a false equivalency of like. But like I do consume media that shares what politically how people are approaching things on more
from either end of the spectrum.
Yes. So I do not. That doesn't mean that for every MSNBC podcast I listen to a Fox News, because I do think that isn't equivalent, you know. But I do seek out. I do want to understand other people's opinions. So that's one way I do it. But another thing that I really try to think of, and the woman that we had on our podcast a while ago, Maggie, she read a poem at the end of her episode that talked about you don't have to do it all. I don't have to
right.
crawl across broken glass. And because my intuitive impulse is you have to do everything. None of us are free until all of us are free. And if I am choosing not to go to a protest, if I am choosing not to, you know, quit my job and to like move somewhere in like Costa Rica and like, you know, live off grid so that I stop wasting water, like that's my impulse. I have to tell myself, like, what can I do here? What can I do in the circles that I'm in? And that's hard for me because a lot of times I don't feel like that's enough.
It's so hard when you see that there's so far that we have to go as a society. It's so it can be so hard to not want it to go faster, to not push people to do the right thing. Damn it! I mean, like, come on, isn't this obvious? Apparently, it's not. so yeah, I get that. I get that. And in fact, one of the poems that I didn't choose was the Mary Oliver, where it says, "You don't have to," you know, it's this very sentiment. But I'm convinced that, and we're going to leap to our witchy ethics in a moment, but I'm convinced that so much of the work that we do as individuals contributes to that. And yeah, it could always be better. It could always be faster. We could always, you know, there's always I don't want to say a more perfect way of doing what we're doing, but what we're doing is perfect because it's what we're doing at the time, right? So, yeah.
I think it's a byproduct of me being in so many varying degrees of circles where I have people that don't even know about the leaked SCOTUS opinion. They don't even know that happened. And then I have people that are literally planning the protests. And then, I know. You know, and so in my life. And so it's like there's this huge spectrum of that. And then, and I think this goes back to one of the things I said earlier, which is like, how do I choose without someone telling me what to do, without a book that tells me what to do, or a pope or a preacher or something telling me, well, you need to just go to work and the politicians will figure it out, or you need to quit your job and, you know, camp out the steps of the Supreme Court starting yesterday, you know. And so I feel the weight of that. I think personally, as a witch, the weight of that responsibility is on me to decide.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. So I remember when I first started exploring paganism and Wicca and witchy stuff, the and it harm none, do as thou wilt, was just such a powerful a powerful statement, because it's highly liberating, but it's also scary as crap, right? Because that means everything you do is it was your choice. You can't blame it on the Bible. You can't blame it on your minister or whatever. You made that decision, and if you fucked up big time, you have only yourself to blame, right? It's also liberating in that it gives you the freedom to make those choices, regardless of what the ethical systems might be in the town you live in or the state you live in, et cetera, et cetera. And I've since nuanced that thought, because I belong to a group, we both belong to a group, a circle that has made agreements. So we do have an ethical framework for our interactions with the group, with the proviso, the understanding that it has nothing to do with the individual choices that we make, even within the group, right? We can choose to be out of alignment with the group. Now the group will have something to say about that, but we still bear responsibility for making all of those choices ourselves, right? And then outside of the agreements of that group, we have the remarkable freedom to be able to make all of these decisions ourselves. At least that's my view of my participation in the ethical system. Now, having said that, what does that look like on the ground, you know? Mm-hmm. One of the things I think is so valuable, and it wasn't so much, I would say that our group has moved, when I first became a part of the group, our focus was on kind of like self-development, personal growth, challenging ourselves, developing as women and witches, and or however we identified as a part of the group. But in the past, for some strange reason, I don't know why this happened about 5 years ago, but we became much more political. Some of our magic involved the world, and involved the politics, and how, not so much the politics themselves, but how they affected the people in our country, and particularly the people who had less opportunity to share their voices. And I thought that was wonderful. I mean, I still think it's wonderful. I think that was just a powerful choice to make. Again, then as a group, we had to negotiate what that looked like, right? Because we didn't all, as we said, that we didn't all necessarily agree with what that looked like. But I thought that was incredible, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk a little bit more about what that magic looked like. But I didn't know if you wanted to share anything along those lines. I
do want to share. You're reminding me of these thoughts that I had, this thing that popped up in my mind. 18-year-old Leilani thought she knew a lot, and 18-year-old Leilani did a lot of really dumb things, even though I thought I knew a lot. There is a moment that I think I did hold a lot of wisdom. I was talking to, or the parents of the person I was dating at the time were very conservative Christian, and they were they did not support. I don't want to say uncomfortable. That is not true. They were in full hard stop disagreement with the fact that I was a witch. Now, I may not have expressed it very gracefully. It's like, so I want to take some responsibility there. Mm-hmm. But in that moment, they were telling me, you can be a part of our interactions, but you do not bring the witchy stuff in. Mm. You do not bring that into this Christian household. They did not like that I was dating their child, but they were like, if they're going to date you, they're going to date you, but you leave the witchiness outside. Mm-hmm. We do not support that. Mm-hmm. And I remember looking at them and saying, you're Christian, right? And they said, yeah, duh. Mm-hmm. Yes. How much does your Christian beliefs inform every action that you take? Well, and their response was something like, well, Jesus is always with me. It informs every decision that I make. And I said to them, my witchiness, therefore, informs all of my actions and all of who I am. And that is, and I think that was, I think that I really hit on something that is really truthful. That's one of the few times that I really.
that's wise.
But I think that is I may have, I don't know how much I really understood what I was saying at that time, but I think that is really true. My witchiness, me being a witch, really does inform everything about my choices, my politics, the way I walk in the world. who I choose and how I choose to partner. Like, it is at the core of that. And when I enter into sacred space, not everyone in our circle says that they're witchy, but however it is that they identify, they're bringing their unique truth and that sense of personal responsibility. And it may bump up against we may bump up against each other. And especially now that we're doing more action oriented magic instead of personal growth magic, we may be raising energy for change in the government, but what I'm thinking that might be different than the woman who's standing next to me.
Exactly. Yeah. No. Yes. It's so so even how an ethical system that we all agree to participate in, each interpretation of that can be different. So one of the things in our group is we have different levels of participation, and some are more the leaders, and then some are newer to the group, etc. And so in our agreements, each level has their own version of that agreement. So, for example, one of our agreements is use I statements, meaning, referring from your own experience, not assuming what other people are thinking, etc. But each version has a different way of a way that's going to resonate for where they are in the development in our group. And this is a perfect example of that. We can all say the same thing, but all those words don't mean the exact same thing, right? To individuals. So that's going to make a difference.
It's interesting me to question, like, how as a witch do I navigate that? And because community is so important to me, how as a witch do I navigate being in circle, honoring my own morals, while also recognizing that they could be different from, let's just say, yours, and still holding and sharing in that sacred space and holding that trust.
Well, see, and that's where I think, the very fact that we're contributing energy to this working, which is a group working in most cases, right? This is just totally me, but I'm just convinced that I think our individual aspects are still a part of that group working. It's just that it's amplified by the energy. So we could be back actually at cross purposes or whatever, but my energy is amplifying your intention going out in the world, and yours, even though you might not necessarily agree or even understand what my mind might be, amplifies mine. So a group working has the energy of the group, though the expressions of it could be more unified or it could be more individuated depending on our interpretation of what's taking place. And that's the magic of working magic, is that it's not a zero-sum game. It's not, okay, well, we used a little bit of this energy for Leilani's intention, so that means that I can't tap that energy. I'm convinced that we can continue to multiply and amplify, because we're working energetically, and how energy works is not necessarily how math works, right? Or non-exponential math or something. I'm not quite sure.
Today's poem comes from Marge Piercy. She was born in Detroit, Michigan, and she has a long literary career. She's a feminist. She was involved in a lot of anti-war protests during Vietnam, and she has a lot of novels. And
incredible novels. Highly recommend them.
I actually heard this poem was read on NPR when I first heard it my first time, and I just was sobbing in my car. So I'm excited to share it with everyone today. I feel like it really captures my feeling about how I walk in the world. To be of use. The people I love the best jump into work head first, without dallying in the shallows, and swim off with sure strokes, almost out of sight. They seem to become natives of that element, the black, sleek heads of seals bouncing like half-submerged balls.
I love people who harness themselves, an ox to a heavy cart, who pull like water buffalo with massive patience, who strain in the mud and the muck to move things forward, who do what has to be done again and again.
I want to be with people who submerge in the task, who go into the fields to harvest and work in a row and pass the bags along, who are not parlor generals and field deserters, but move in a common rhythm when the food must come in or a fire be put out.
The work of the world is common as mud, botched, it smears the hands, crumbles to dust. But the thing worth doing, well done, has a shape that satisfies, clean and evident. Greek amphoras for wine or oil. Hopi vases that held corn are put in museums, but you know they were made to be used. The pitcher cries for water to carry, and a person for work that is real.
Thank you for being a part of our work that is real today. In that realness of that work, we realized that we have way more to say. We haven't even touched on the concepts of. And so with that, we are going to leave this episode for today and come back again and record a part 2 for next time.
Yay!
We hope you have enjoyed the magic that has unfolded here at Witchy Wit.
It would be great if you would help make Witchy Wit possible and get access to exclusive content by donating on Patreon.
We'd love it if you join our Witchy community and enjoy shareable content on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Would you do us a big favor and support us by rating and reviewing us wherever you get your podcasts? It's free and helps witchy folks find us.
Feel free to email us at witchywitpodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear from our community. Reach out and let us know what's brewing in your cauldron.
New episodes are released every second and fourth Friday. Follow us on your favorite podcasting platform so our episodes go right to your playlist. You can listen as you ride your broom.
Stay witchy, y'all!